my father was a basketball coach at Pembroke. He was at Magnolia High School. Then he went to Pembroke High School. But back then it was all segregated. He didn't play against white teams. He played against Indian teams and black teams. That was it. And then, remember one of the first white players I ever saw was Pete Maravich. I saw him play in 1965.
So he would have been young.
Well, he had to go to prep school for a year before he went to LSU. So he graduated from Raleigh Broughton High School. Didn't have the grades to get into LSU, so he went to Edwards Military Institute. And then from Edwards Military Institute, then he went to LSU. Back then, SAT was a big deal. ACT was a big deal. You had to pass that thing to get to school. There weren't no waivers back then. But anyway, my dad, there was a doubleheader. My dad's team was playing the first game, and then Edwards Military Institute was playing in the second game. And I started thinking, I was just a little boy, I didn't know, I just went to the game. You know, I just wanted to make sure I got a Baby Ruth bar, back some popcorn and a Coke. That's all I cared about. But all these years later, I found out my dad scheduled that game because he wanted me to see Pete Maravich. But I watched Pete play that night. Back then, you know, if you came from the right school district or the right area, the court would be 92 feet, 94 feet. That one that night is probably about 85. But the referee would hand the ball. Here's what I remember. They'd give the ball to whoever's taking the ball in bounds. They throw it to Pete, and you get 10 seconds to go across half court, right? Well, Pete starts doing ball handling drills, just high, just in between his legs. Somebody would get on him, he'd start doing this, and he'd look at the clock, make sure he get across in 10 seconds. Then once he got across in 10 seconds, it was like the Harlem Globetrotters. You know, you might as well have been singing or playing Sweet Georgia Brown on the loudspeaker because Pete was going to work. The best thing was his passing.
Yeah.
Now, he could score 50 in any game he wanted. But that night, for some reason, he just was, the guys played like this so he wouldn't get hit in the face. Because he never looked at you. You know, you never knew what angle it would come from. He was, I'd never seen anything like that. Then about 2 years later, 67, 68, the Boston Celtics were playing the Philadelphia 76ers in a preseason game, old Charlotte Coliseum, which is about 100 miles from Pembroke. My dad took me to see him. I remember going in the concession, it was a doubleheader. St. Louis Hawks, not Atlanta, St. Louis Hawks was playing the Baltimore Bullets in the first game. St. Louis's best player was a guy by the name of Bob Pettit. And their other best player was a little guard named Richard Gearin.
Bob Pettit, LSU guy too.
One of the greatest to ever play the game. Baltimore Bullets, I don't remember much about them. I know Elvin Hayes was there shortly after, was unsettled. But I went out to the concession stand at halftime of the first game. And standing in front of me was Bill Russell. And standing in front of him was Will Chamberlain. And they both had on suits, and they both had on the little brim caps. They were just standing in the concession line. And I was scared to death to ask them for an autograph. I never thought about autographs back then. I remember when people first started asking me for autographs, I'd always think about that. You know, I could have had Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain because they were nice as could be. And then I couldn't wait to get down and tell my mother and father who I saw. I said, Daddy, Mama, Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain, they're the concession stand line. Slow down, what are you saying? That's how excited I was. So after that first game, I sat there and couldn't believe what I saw. But those were, you know, basketball has been such a big part of my life because it was a big part of my dad's life.